Shiver me timbers and let's set sail. We're going beyond the borderline.
Yeah,
That was the best one yet.
that was great.
All right. Welcome back, folks, to Beyond the Borderline, episode 9?
8.
9?
No.
8, my guy.
8. Yeah, what am I saying? Episode 8. Good stuff. So last episode, we talked about aliens, basically discussing the Fermi paradox and why haven't we contacted aliens? Why is there no real evidence of alien existence? And then we kind of ended the episode on a bit of a cliffhanger, which was essentially what I brought up, which was the quote by Stephen Hawking that advanced alien civilizations would be to us as Chris Columbus was to the Native Americans, in terms of they would likely be, or quite plausibly be, a nomadic civilization that would have the goal of conquering and colonizing as many planets as they possibly could, just for the simple sake of it. Because I mean, if we say that aliens are in any way like humans, I mean, we have that drive to explore, right? Or else we wouldn't have explored the entire world, essentially. Or else Columbus and the rest of the explorers would never have come from Europe. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? That aliens, if they were to be intelligent like us, would also want to do that, but in space. So,
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
well, yeah. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts?
Well, so just so that assumption is that aliens of, high intelligence civilization are thinking like we think, and I think that's kind of arrogant to assume that, because we have no idea what higher civilizations could be thinking. We have no idea how they think, how they perceive things. We don't even know if they're carbon based, right? Like, there's no way of telling there's no way of telling the desires, wants.
Yeah, but if
attitudes,
a civilization could get to space and could traverse space, like, let's have that as the axiom. If they could do that, why wouldn't they colonize other worlds?
I would like to think of them more like the Vikings, right? The Vikings at heart weren't violent. They weren't looking to fight. When they went to England,
Well, if we're the English, then fuck me.
Well, so this is how it happened, right? They set their sails and they landed in England. They were looking for land to farm. They weren't looking to fight. Now, I think we would be acting as the English did, and we had two options. We can either share with this new civilization, or we say no, GTFO, we were here first.
Mhm.
And if we say no, then the aliens, being of more higher intellect, or better technology, whatever, better weapons, whatever you want to say, then they would start a fight. But they wouldn't necessarily. I think I like to hope and believe that if this was the case, hypothetically, obviously, that if we're willing to share, then it's going to be peaceful. But if we're not willing to share, then boom, we're gone.
But the thing about the Vikings and the English, though, is that their relationship was based off of, was shaped by the fact that they were on the same level technologically, more or less, right? They're similar enough, in terms of technology and in terms of social structure, that a trade relationship, or peace negotiations, or whatever it was able to be brokered, or was able to form. But with a species or a civilization that's like orders of magnitude more advanced than us, I mean, that's like a cat and a mouse. Why would they want to negotiate? Why would they want to live alongside us? I mean, like, let's say they were driven here, like they were motivated by searching for resources or whatever, or maybe
Right.
their world was going to die. I mean, the same reason we want to get off world, right? The sun's going to die, something like that. Why would they share anything with us? Our resources, our land?
Well, so that goes into a deeper philosophical question. That goes into the question of, once again, we don't know the mindset of this alien civilization. So if it was humans if we were the ones in that situation, we probably would want to take what they have because at its core, humans are naturally greedy and evil creatures. But
Yeah, but
these
life is
creatures-
competition though. All life is competitive.
When you look at other countries in the world, there's countries that are more powerful and there's countries that are less powerful, but they don't go and invade and conquer now.
Well, sure
It's
they do. Russia's
based
doing it
off-
right now.
China is going to be doing it to
Well, but
Taiwan
for the
very
most
soon.
part, when you look at other, like, you know, in Western society and stuff like that, like there's definitely like more powerful nations than others. You know, sometimes, yeah, people attack, but again, there's a lot of countries that live in peace.
Now, yeah. But what happened? Western
Yeah, but so why-
civilization is built on
So why can't
North
that happen?
America.
Why can't that happen
It's
with
Connor. It's
other
really simple.
otherworldly people?
It's really simple. The reason why we have so much peace and so much prosperity and so much, mutual beneficial alliances and like that is because that is the status quo right now. The status quo is mutually beneficial for all those people working together. But once that status quo changes for whatever reason, that is when you start to see real human nature come to fruition. That is when conflict arises.
And there's also something to be said for the fact that we're all the same species. Like human
And it-
interactions are going to be very different than,
But
we're not
wouldn't
even
it
going to be
make
able
more-
to
wouldn't it-
communicate with these people.
Wouldn't it
Yeah.
make more sense? Wouldn't it make more sense to at least try and start with a peaceful allegiance? We would trade with them, they would trade with us, even though they like, you know, hypothetically would be of higher intellect and of higher technology. Wouldn't it make more, like, in my opinion, it just makes more sense to risk no one's life at first if you can.
But what,
Okay,
what
well,
if,
think about
but
go
what if
ahead.
all they want is nothing to, but what if their sole goal, their sole desire is to conquer? What if they are coming here specifically with the intent to destroy, right? Like that's also a possibility. Then a peaceful resolution
what
really
point-
isn't
at one
possible.
But I
point-
find
At one point is
destroy.
anything, at one point is anything, I'm gonna destroy it. Like, even when Christopher Columbus came to the Americas, he didn't say, I'm gonna go and destroy everything.
Yeah, but wait,
Well,
let
so the-
Phil.
so
Let
you're-
Phil.
you're-
Wait. Phil hasn't spoken yet.
So, like, I get what you're saying, Brian and Connor, about like wanting to destroy, but we have to kind of
I
look
didn't
at the
say
word
it.
destroy.
I didn't say wanting to destroy it. I did
Okay,
not say that.
then mind where someone said. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if you let me finish, you'll hear why.
I'm finished.
So
Silent roast. Polite roast.
basically, we kind of took this approach of like, are they going to conquer? Are they going to kind of evaporate what existed before? Like, I want to bring the question to you guys. What if Christopher Columbus never sailed west? Would Western society be different? Would it be
Somebody would have.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, it would
It
be
doesn't
different.
matter who it was. Somebody would have sailed eventually. Whoever
Okay, but
that
even
was,
if it was someone different,
would
Connor,
they
then
be
we would live in a different society than we know now. That's just
Right,
you
but
know,
you
like,
just saying that someone else would have done it proves the
Like,
the
it's
early
human
point,
nature.
right? That yeah, well, it's definitely human nature. So then the question is
would have
it
been, it
also
could have very well been a different outcome. That doesn't, just because someone else would have done it doesn't mean the same outcome would have occurred.
okay? Think about this then. Think about this. Aliens come to Earth, seeking resources and land and a place to live. They start by initially cooperating with us because we know the ways of this planet. We know the climate. We know the science and the physics and how they apply to Earth. We know, how to create energy here on Earth. We know where the best spots to live are. We know where the resources are to be mined. So sure, maybe we would form some kind of communication with them, and we would enter into some kind of alliance. But what happens when they have to move their entire planet here and there's no space to live? What happens when we have radically different ideas of how to govern a society, and that becomes incompatible with what we have here on Earth? What happens when
Well, it's already
they
happening
need
on
more
Earth within
resources?
people, within
Yeah, but wait,
humans,
wait,
that's
I'm
already
not done. I'm not
happening.
done. Right, but but humans are capable of exerting we know how much damage we can do to each other, which is a lot. We could kill each other, all of us right now with nukes and whatever. But aliens is an entirely different story. And that's what we're talking about. So eventually, they want more and more. And since they have such greater technology and greater intellect, presumably, or at least, or, equal intellect, they would probably come to see themselves as better than us. I mean, what did the Europeans
Oh yeah,
think? That they were more
I
civilized,
agree
right?
with you 100%, Cam.
They were more civilized, and so thus they deserved to rule over the natives. They pushed their religions on them. They pushed their technology and their culture on them.
Assimilation.
But eventually it was like the natives said, there were various conflicts, but the gist of it was, this is our fucking land, and so conflicts arose. So what happens when we say to the aliens, finally, look, this is our fucking planet. Get out of our oil mines. You can't have it. That's ours. Or how dare you fucking bulldoze all that farmland to put up a new city for you guys to live? We need that food.
Yeah.
Then
Well,
what
it's like
happens?
assimilation. It's like assimilation or annihilation. So there's two.
So we would
options
get
there. You could-
annihilated, basically, or become
Well, it
slaves.
depends. We can either try and live, coexist, um, and that's like assimilation.
Do you
Now,
think that's an option,
whichever
Connor?
power, assimilation or annihilation? Yeah, 100%. So you can either live within if they have higher being and a higher power and more powerful, then we would have to assimilate into their cultures and their norms, or die. And if we're of higher power, then they would be able, just because they're able to get to Earth doesn't necessarily mean that they're more powerful than us.
That's true.
Uh,
That's also true.
Well,
So
no, not really. I mean that.
yeah, it is.
Well, no, Cam,
They don't-
they could have the exact same technology as us. Maybe they're advanced by 20 more years and they figured out how to efficiently travel across space-time in a time frame that wouldn't take too long, but they're still not so advanced that their military and just their technology in general isn't that much ahead of our own. Then it would come down to either a numbers game or, well, yeah, it would essentially come down to a numbers game.
Okay, so what about this then?
So,
What happens
let's
if
just say-
like
let's
what
just say
happens?
this,
Hold on, wait.
Let's just say, well, can I explain it real quick before you go ahead? Because the way I look at it as, they could be, they could be able to travel through space way better than us, but they might not be as powerful as we are on Earth because, gravity is a big factor in Earth for us, and we talked about
Oh, you're talking
moving to
physically
Mars and stuff like
powerful.
that. Yeah, so there's just the completely different physics, right? So our weapons would be different from their weapons, and our technology is different from their technology, and so they might not understand Earth,
You know what?
especially at first.
And you know what?
So we could have more power, and if they want to
Right,
remain
right.
on Earth,
And
then
what
they
none
could
of us
assimilate into us, or vice versa. And if they are more powerful than us, then we can assimilate into them. Or
And-
the other option is to just go complete out war and annihilate one or the other, and whichever one's more powerful. That
And
happens.
one quick thing, the thing that none of us have even suggested, and I'm using War of the Worlds as an example of this.
Nice.
The ending of War of the Worlds, I hate it. I think it's a stupid ending. But the reason why all the aliens died off was because the different pathogens and germs and different microbiologies that exist on Earth could be very harmful to a foreign alien life form, right? Like the things
True.
that our immune system are immune to could the weakest thing on this planet could kill someone that has never been on this planet before, right? So
True.
what's
Yeah.
to say if an alien race comes down onto our planet and they just up and die as soon as they breathe in our air?
So
What if they can't
hopefully
even
they
breathe
come.
air?
Hopefully they come soon.
Just
then,
give them
and
COVID,
get
and then they'll have to quarantine.
They would be so floored. They would be like,
I would think a highly advanced race, or even a race that was at the same capabilities as us, would have the foresight to think that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And that's why I hate the ending of War of the Worlds, but still it's still a possibility.
Well, going back to the Columbus, what's the word? Analogy. It could be the inverse as well, right? Like, why did most of the natives die after European colonization? Is because the Europeans brought over, smallpox and measles
Yep.
and all these diseases that the natives had absolutely no resistance to, whereas the Europeans did. So what you're saying is absolutely true, Ryan. but it could also be the inverse, right? What if they bring some crazy shit,
Yep.
some plague that we have? I mean, our immune systems get overrun by that. That's also a possibility. I just don't think it's a good idea in general, dude. Like, I don't want aliens to visit. Fuck that. Like,
I think it's
leave
gonna.
me alone, man.
I think it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen eventually. Either we're the ones that discover aliens first, or aliens discover us first. I think it's gonna happen eventually. Maybe not in our lifetime, but it's definitely gonna happen.
It's
What are
scary
the-
to think that it's like a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Well, but going back to what we talked about last episode, it's like, I mean, I guess 50-50 is the right way to put it, because either you believe that it's like nearly 100% chance based on the Drake equation, or a 0% chance based on the belief that we are unique and like God's creation or whatever. So like, depending on what you believe, you either feel completely safe or like existential dread at all times. But I guess the way to balance it is just, I don't know, not to think
Yeah.
about it.
Unfortunately, me personally, I find more validation in science than I do in spiritual faith. Unfortunately.
Well, what's that scientific evidence for aliens then? We just discussed this. There is
Well,
none.
yeah, I guess.
So
Yeah,
it's
and I
not
guess
science
and I
at
guess
all.
the
It's
Drake,
probability. It's
I guess
mathematics.
well, and I guess the Drake equation, the theory of that it proposes hasn't been proven either, but
Exactly.
the mathematics are sound essentially, and that is where I find comfort.
But there's nothing after the
Oh.
equal sign.
It's like
You know?
it's not. Is there like what's the chances of definitive life? It's like what are the of aliens? It's like what are the chances of the possibility of aliens?
But that's assuming that life, well, they're assuming that life can be generated on other planets at all, right? Like, what's to say that Earth isn't the only one? Sure, there's other planets that
Yeah.
are Earth-like. But what's to say that our specific combination of gravity and oxygen and plant life and the way we formed over the years and being in the Goldilocks zone and the size of our sun is all the perfect storm for life? And even though there are planets that, like, say, have water on them, or, you know, orbit a sun at a distance similar to Earth, they still don't have the other 20 factors that require, right?
So that, yeah, getting into that idea that, yeah, it does seem, everything does seem really perfect. It can't be random. I think personally, I think it's a better argument for that we're in a simulation rather than God and religion and God created everything. I think
But we talked
that's
about that before, and fuck that.
I think
dude.
I think it's a better. I think a simulation, the fact that we live in a simulation is a better answer for the fact that everything is perfect and everything works the way it should.
You're such an atheist.
Here's
No,
another thing to
no,
look at. Is
I'm
like,
not.
where
I'm not.
does
I
the
do not
universe
want to live
end,
in a
though? Like,
simulation.
does the universe end? Right? And like, no, it doesn't.
As far as we
No,
know,
it will. It will. There's gonna be the
What-
heat
what-
death of the universe.
Okay, so what's at the edge of the universe?
Well,
we
the
don't know 'cause
universe
we
is
haven't been able to
constantly
see it.
expanding.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't been able to see it because
And
the universe is
particles-
constantly expanding.
Essentially, the universe doesn't end.
No, it
Pretty
will.
sure
Here,
that's the theory.
hold
Well,
on.
no, that's the fact. Because like beyond that, like beyond the edge of the universe, what is there?
So hold on, Connor.
Nothingness, which is
Theoretically,
technically part of the universe.
hold on, Connor. We can all
But
agree
the
that the
universe
universe
is kind of nothingness.
No, hold
to
on.
begin
Let me explain the logic of this. We can all agree that the universe is continuously growing, right? If you could manage to go in the opposite direction of that growth, if you could pinpoint the way in the way in which the universe is growing, if you could travel faster in the opposite direction at the rate that the universe is growing, technically you would eventually reach the end
Or the beginning.
or the
No, you
beginning,
reach the beginning, but
or you
it
would
would
reach
be
the beginning,
nothing.
which
It
would then be the
nothingness,
edge.
which would be
Yeah.
nothingness, which is technically still part of the universe, right? Like that's something like to try and wrap your head around. Is like what is like where does the universe end and nothingness begin, and is that nothingness still part of the universe that's gonna grow?
Well, there
or-
can't be something that's not part of the universe. It can't exist in reality. If the universe is all matter, right?
Like
Well,
everything.
then you get into the larger
So-
discussion of dimensions and what we can perceive and what we currently, like.
So the
exist and
universe goes
occupy
on
in.
forever.
Yeah,
Like,
yes,
this
it's
is the
infinite.
thing
It's literally
that's
infinite.
hard to wrap your head around. If the universe is infinite,
there's
Can't just be
some
one. It just can't be. It can't just be one planet in
Well,
the
because-
entire existence of everything.
But think about it. The universe is not only infinite, but it's expanding, which means the space between everything is expanding. So it's not as if it's expanding and new planets are just popping up randomly, you know? It's like, I mean, sure, there are probably processes that are forming new planets right now, but it's like if there were planets that could have been habitable, eventually the space between them and their sun is going to grow too great that it won't be habitable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's fucked. Okay, also, this is totally random, but I just got this
Okay.
idea. This is
Shoot.
totally fucking random. Phil, you when you mentioned doppelgangers last episode, I thought this is what you were talking about, but it's not.
okay.
Okay, crazy idea. So if the universe is infinite, infinity means all things are possible, right? So
Mhm.
one could theorize that. I think I heard this on Vsauce. Great channel, by the way. Fuck me.
Great channel.
That's
Don't know what that
sexual.
is.
Just look it up. Anyway, the theory is that if you go far enough into the universe, eventually you will find a configuration of atoms, particles, and whatnot identical to yourself. Because in an infinite world, which the universe is, anything can happen. Any configuration of atoms can happen. And so, just like the multiverse theory, basically, because that's also dealing with infinity, you would eventually come across your clone.
Well, that probably gets into a larger discussion of quantum physics and quantum mechanics.
Well, that
No,
was
no,
kind of
But
that was
just
my point,
the theory.
but kind of the inverse approach. Like my argument was that some higher power or some intergalactic authority is preventing us from that happening.
Yeah, but why would that even matter though? I'm just saying, like, it's possible.
I know. I was saying that that may be a somewhat evidence to suggest that there has been civilizations in the past that we just don't have access to. And maybe that's because the universe is expanding at such a rapid pace. It could be.
Okay. But so you're saying
But I
that
totally
because of
agree
the
with you.
concept of infinity, there has to be has
Yes,
to be life.
that's right.
Dude, I just disproved my own fucking argument, I think.
Yeah.
Because if it's infinite, well, unless you still the God God trumps everything. Because you can still say if God created the universe, he still, even though it's infinite, he
Yeah.
still decided that sentient life would be restricted only to humans. I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
I don't
If you
subscribe
You know
to
what?
think
that.
it could be but if it could be infinite, then there's a strong possibility that in that abyss or whatever you want to call it of infinity, there's an exact copy of Earth. There's an exact copy of everybody.
Yeah, true.
And
Maybe so.
and nobody's unique anymore.
So
Damn.
maybe think about this. This might be crazy, but if the universe is infinite and it's ever changing and it's ever growing, does that suggest that the universe itself is alive? Does it suggest that the universe has its own consciousness that's connected to everything?
You
Damn.
basically just
Like
said
the
No,
force?
come on. It's not alive.
you pretty much just summed up what God is.
Right. Yeah. So
You're
I'll look.
you're coming at the conclusions. You want to believe in God, I think.
It's easier.
I
So
want
bad.
no. That's why
It's
I've
easier-
said time
it's-
and time again that I'm an agnostic. I want to believe something exists. It can't just be all
No.
random.
I would think.
Something
I would
has
think
to
of
be
it more like.
responsible
I would
for
think of it.
our existence.
And then every
More
time
like
I
a
present a good
waterfall.
argument, you're like, nah, fuck that.
I would think of it more
I don't
like a
want to
waterfall
put
rather
stock
than
in
like an
anything until I
energy.
have, like all the facts.
That's admirable.
All the facts.
dude,
You're gonna
think of
have
it
all
more
the
like a
facts when you're
waterfall,
dead.
though.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I
sorry.
have all the facts when I'm dead.
Connor, waterfalls or something.
Well, yeah, like, that's what.
What were you
if you
saying?
want to
Chasing
think of it like as like unlimited and like expanding, like I don't know, like that kind of like when I think of that, like I think of like a waterfall or like a like a drop hitting the water and then like it just rippling out. That's kind of like
Right.
a way that I would think of it as like when it's always growing. It's like that first wave that just continues to push from that original drop, or like a waterfall where it's always flowing. Or like like when you're a kid and you make like a ditch in the sand, and you just watch it slowly, like, you know, grow bigger, 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 get wider, wider, wider. I don't know. That's just the image that popped up in my head when we're talking about like
Well, but
infinity and
so
ever expanding.
when we were talking about the universe expanding, though, not only is it constantly expanding, but it's getting colder too, right? Like eventually when
Now, why is that?
What is that? Why they say it's a cold, cold world?
yeah, well, it's space. Fuck, like it's literally the vacuum of space. But it's like fuck, what is it called? It's like the heat. Like, have you heard of the heat death of the universe?
No.
No.
Vaguely.
It's like the theory of how the universe is gonna end. Let me look this up.
When it gets cold enough to where like particles can't move anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So apparently there's a heat death and the cold death. So cold death being the universe continue to expand forever. Because of it, it eventually cools down. It will be too cold to support life and will end in a whimper.
A
Pathetic.
whimper.
Oh, the big crunch is the opposite. The big crunch occurs when the universe has enough matter density to contract back on itself, eventually shrinking to a point. This shrinking will cause the temperature to rise, resulting in a very hot end of the universe. Right. So it's like the anti-Big Bang. And then the theory
Wow.
is that the big crunch, well, a theory, is both an ending and a beginning. Whereas our universe dies by reducing back to a singular point,
Another.
and then
Another Big Bang happens.
implodes and creates a Big Bang, which creates a new universe. And so if that were to be true, then our current universe was born out of the death of an old universe.
That's fucked. I've honestly thought
That's
about that. That
insane.
is crazy.
And through this whole discussion, we haven't acknowledged how absurd all of these things are.
What the fuck?
You're telling me that we're floating on a marble in the middle of absolute nothingness? Come on, dude.
I know. In this
It's
unlimited
extremely
vacuum.
cool. It's
So are we
cool.
somebody? Are we the previous universe's doppelgangers right now? Then
Well, that's the
That
thing.
was what I was
Did it-
alluding to.
did this podcast already
Oh.
exist? Did we already have these conversations?
So
I
that
don't know, man.
that gets into the suggestion that, you know, everything's predetermined. You have no control over your own actions. There's no free will.
Well, I heard this compromise between predetermination and free will. Let me try and think if I can remember it without sounding like a dumbass. So,
like-
well, predetermination in the sense that like, well, it's like a religious idea, more or less. I mean, it's a philosophical idea, but like it takes on religious connotations when you say that like God predetermines every result or whatever. But I think you can have a middle ground where you say like there's something fundamental about the human ability to choose, right? So like our lives may be predetermined in the sense that like you know, we face these massive choices throughout our life about where to take our life and what to do with ourselves as people and how to conduct ourselves in the world. And those may be predetermined, but we still have the power in that micro instant of time between doing and not doing to choose, right?
No, I don't think you can have that
Why?
because, well, think about
So
this.
you
like,
think every
if I-
choice you've ever made is just horseshit?
Well, I believe that we have free will, and I don't think anything's predetermined.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Okay, what's
because
your
if
argument?
but like, I don't think there can be a middle ground here because, you know, the easiest example would be like if you in one morning you decide you're gonna eat cereal instead of like a smoothie or something, and you end up choking on your cereal. You know, like if you believe that you had the free will to eat your cereal and you were supposed to live till 40 or whatever, like, or you're supposed to live till 80 or 100 or whatever, you know, the universe says this is when you're supposed to die.
Mhm.
Then, you know, then your free will just made you eat cereal and you died before you were supposed to. So is there free will?
Well, but the determinists say that the reason free will doesn't exist is because your choices every choice has a cause, right?
And an
Every
effect, yeah.
action or every reaction comes from an action, or sorry, every effect comes from a cause, right? And so whatever choices you make, whatever behavior you have, all has a cause, whatever that cause may be, right? You eat a sandwich because you're hungry. You know, whatever the fuck. And therefore it's predictable. You know, if you were to run an accurate enough analysis of human behavior, you could predict people's behavior based on external causes, and therefore, from that point of view, free will is an illusion. But where am I going with this?
I don't know.
But no, but you get what I mean, though.
No, I understand.
So they
I
say
kinda
that people
understand what you
aren't
mean.
actually able to act for themselves because all their behavior is influenced by external factors.
But then
But I think there's still
people
room
take those. I
for
think people take those external factors and make decisions for themselves. That's why I believe in free will.
Right,
There is
right.
definitely external factors definitely dictate a lot from your life. They dictate who you are, what you grow into be, and how you evolve as a human being. But you know,
Yeah.
from those external factors, you got to make your own choices as to how you consume that information and consume those pressures.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can make an informed decision for yourself as to what you want to do. Like, think about it like,
It's still a
people that-
compromise, though, right?
what's the compromise? There's no compromise. People are
Between
gonna,
determinism and choice.
no, it's a choice. Like, people are gonna they're gonna feed you information. You're gonna find information all day long. And from that information, you take that in and you got to decide for yourself, how you want to perceive that information and then do with that information as you please.
Okay, what about internal factors then? So the external factors being, whatever outside environmental pressures that cause you to do something, what you just said, taking in information, media, school, parents, friends, shit like that. But also like what's happening in our brains, like our personality traits, for example, are insane predictors of what we're going to do, not only in our lives, like grand scale, but in individual situations as well. They're so you can break things down at that level of analysis, the personality traits or other internal factors that could also predict behavior. So then is free will also not a choice? And furthermore,
You can
the
predict
things
someone's
going on in
behavior,
our
but
brain.
what is behavior correlate to having a choice to do what you want to do or not?
Because that's what behavior is choosing a course of action. But the real
But
shit.
choosing a course of
Hold on.
action,
But
but
listen to this.
that's not where's the free will? Like, whether you have free will or everything's predetermined, behavior doesn't really affect that, right? Because you can, like, being able to predict somebody is different than them having free will or not.
Yeah, but the fact that you're able to predict it means that there are factors that are causing people's behavior definitively, and that it's not their choices that are causing it, but other factors, determinable factors. But okay, this is the real fucked up shit. If you analyze people's brains while they're doing specific things, you can see how the neurons fire, right? When they do particular actions. And in many cases, the brain activity starts before people actually do something.
Well, yeah,
even moving.
I would.
So-
I wouldn't attribute that to determinism, though, Cam. I would attribute that to the power of the brain. We are so capable of thinking of a multitude of different ways of approaching how we want to conduct ourselves. And
Yeah,
just
but is
because
it
we see the
our brain controlling us or us controlling our brain? Right?
No, it's us controlling our brain.
How do you know that? But how do you know that is the question, right? If the brain
Because-
activity
because at the-
starts
because at the
before
end of
the
the
action,
because at the end of the day, you still have to choose whether or not you're going to act upon that activity, or you still have to choose whether or not you're going to commit to that act. If you
yeah,
don't,
but how do you know it's not, like, let's just say any given action, if the brain activity is starting before you're doing it, and that's observable as a fact, then how do you know that you're not just a slave to the biological whims of the electric activity of your brain?
I think I think it comes
Boom.
down to the fact that your brain.
I had to sit down for that one.
I think it comes to the fact that the human brain is a lot stronger than we might realize. It is capable of thinking at a level that it's thinking at a level that goes so fast that we can't comprehend it in real time.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to break it down. But anyway, we have a minute and
cool.
a bit
I think we
left.
should. I think this is part one of a two-part. I think next episode will definitely
Free will
continue this
versus
deep
versus
dive into
determinate.
free will versus predetermined
Yeah, let's
outcomes,
do
whether you
it.
have a choice over your life or not.
Yep.
Because I feel
Let's
like we have
do
a
it.
lot more to get into. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you're excited about this topic like we are, and you want to listen to more and hear some of our opinions and thoughts and discussion, please follow in for next week's episode.
Yep.
And remember, take care, brush your hair, and make sure you're wearing clean underwear.
Yeah, and as a last word, that was great, by the way. As a last word, our socials are linked in the description of this podcast. Please follow us, share it to your friends, your family, your neighbor, your ex-lovers, your dog, anyone. Like and follow us, rate us 5 stars, please get the word out. We want to keep having these conversations. So
If you like us, share us. If you don't like us, share us. We don't care. Just share.
Exactly.
Share.
and take
God
care and brush your
bless.
hair again.
We want to talk to the aliens when they come. We want to
Yeah.
be the ambassadors.
All right,
Make us
peace,
famous.
guys.